Hi, I'm Noam Wasserman, Dean of the Syms School of Business at Yeshiva University. I was a longtime professor at Harvard Business School, an entrepreneur, and a venture capitalist. I wrote the bestseller, The Founder's Dilemmas.
And I'm Charlie Harary. I've been working with companies for over 10 years. And that book, Founder's Dilemmas, and the challenges faced by the 10,000 founders in it is the basis of this podcast. We are delving into the issues faced by startups to help you avoid the pitfalls that claim so many good companies.
Let's get started.
Welcome to the Founder's Dilemmas podcast. Charlie Harary here. Hope you enjoyed the first episode. If you didn't check it out, please go back and look at our first episode as we get the background of the story of Julie Feder, the CFO of Aura. I'm here with Dean Wasserman. Julie, I'm going to jump right to you. We were talking in the last podcast about the story of going public and the moments towards the end. Please jump us and give us a little bit of that background and take us through what happened.
So we're back to 11 p.m. on Wednesday night. I'm on the phone with bankers trying to decide how am I going to get this done the next day. So we confirmed there was nobody that got a better deal after they pulled their deal. We knew we had the money around the table, and we were going out to raise $75 million. And $75 million would really take my company a long way. We really wanted that money. It was really going to enable us to really get to the next level. This conversation went on till I would say about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm so grateful that these guys spent so much time helping me think through and helping me really craft the message for my board the next day. Well, the next morning, the investor that I was targeting, really felt strongly about, came in for an offer actually bigger than the banks thought they would come in, and that was it for me. I was getting this deal done. This was my moment with my CEO and my C team to stand up to the board and say, this is our time, we got to do it. 4 o'clock was the pricing call. We knew that we were going to price at the lower end of the range because the market was so bad, and we were fine with that. We knew we were going to do the 75. And as you can imagine, there are people on my board who were sort of like, this is a terrible idea. The markets are crashing. You're crazy. We're not going to do it. And I politely interrupted, and I said, if you could just listen to me for 5 minutes. And I, with heart, with emotion, with absolute belief in the story, I pled my case as we described all the reasons why we needed to take this company
Can you
public.
reenact it? Do it for us right now.
I'm so exhausted. Nobody ever went out with a deal, pulled it, and got a better deal. We have absolutely no idea what's going to happen with January. This management team has spent an extraordinary amount of time, 6 months, planning and preparing for this, and we will have to do it again. Do you really want to take this management team out of the business of developing this drug for a longer period of time? We have the money around the table. It's going to be locked up for 180 days. Let's do this deal. I will personally tell you as the CFO, we will allocate it tightly. This is the right time for Aura. We got to get this deal done. And it was a tide
I would vote yes
change.
if I was in that room.
Thank you. Thank you. So it did change the tide. Everyone got really supportive and excited about it, and we priced that night. Yeah. Again, it wasn't because of me. Guys, there's no I in team. These bankers really put their blood and guts into it. These lawyers held my hand throughout the entire thing. My leadership team and my finance team were extraordinary. This is a team effort. This is never one person that gets it done by themselves, but I was thrilled to be at the table.
So just burrowing into the team piece of it, and then I'd love to be able to get to that day as the bell is ringing.
That's crazy.
You referred to before when you're doing the 2 a.m. call, these guys. However, there were some very interesting aspects of the makeup of the team.
Oh, this is amazing. All right, guys, this is incredible. I grew up, and every time I think about my successes in all my careers, I'm going to just say it. It was always working for a man. Listen, I've never once felt that I wasn't paid the same. I never once felt I wasn't given the right opportunities. I was very fortunate. I worked for some incredible people all along the way. But as I was sitting there, from the org meeting all the way through the pricing meeting, I thought about who was sitting around the table. Who are these amazing people sitting around the table? And the morning after we priced, so the first day of not the ringing of the bell, because that was a year later, but the morning that we were going to be trading on this NASDAQ exchange, I sat down. I couldn't sleep. I hadn't slept in months, so it was, I had to get reaccustomed to sleeping. And I just decided, what does every nice Jewish mother do? She bakes. So I baked challah and bagels overnight. I don't know why, but it was very therapeutic. My boss showed up at 7 a.m. She also couldn't sleep. We were crazy excited. And I said, you know what's remarkable? I created a list. I'm a big Excel person. I created a list of all the senior executives on my 60 to 80 person team that took us public. 21 of them were women leaders across every discipline. I had multiple head bankers. I had multiple head lawyers. I had my heads of my E&Y team, my accounting team, my CFGI consultants. I mean, across every single, even my investor relations firm. I mean, there was leaders across the board, and they were all women. That's not to say for the gentlemen in the room, I'm incredibly grateful for the men on my team, don't get me wrong. But for me, that was a big aha moment. We had meetings where there was only one guy and like 12 women, right? And the guy in the meeting would be like, this is a little awkward for me. And we were like, no. So I honestly think that it was refreshing to me to see other women that, you know, to have a CEO, CFO, female lead I'm told is very, very rare. And it was absolutely extraordinary to partner with her to get that done.
Okay. So you've taken us through a bit of the roller coaster ride, and right now we're in the middle of that ride. Take us that key day and onwards for us.
So we had bagels at 7, and then we called a bunch of our early investors that were European because it was early, it was 6 hours later, and it was incredible to celebrate with them. And they've been in it for so long with us. Some of these investors go back to 2010, 12. I mean, have been around for a while and crazy supportive. And we just waited for that market to start trading our stock, and the stock market doesn't open until 9:30. Well, at 9:35 we weren't trading, and every 3 seconds I'm calling another banker, why aren't we trading? Well, you have to wait a little bit of time, you got to see a little bit of volume, and then they open it. So we were able to celebrate together. We called our C team, we had bagels, we called a lot of people, we celebrated, it started trading, and it traded beautifully on the first day. Wow. We were really fortunate. Now,
did you feel the need to refresh the Google Finance page every 10 seconds to see how you guys are doing?
I'll tell you, when I think about what's changed from then until now, I don't do it all day.
Oh, okay.
Right? My CEO, Ellie, said, could you get me one of those tickers? I need it for my desk. I'm like, there's no way I'm getting you a ticker. But listen, I live and breathe by that number now, right? So that's a big change. Now that I'm a public company CFO, I will tell you that watching that stock price and the volume every day and the market cap going up, it's stressful, it's crazy. There's not really much you can do about it, but the only thing you can do is execute, right? I really try to work with my teams around the company. We have to execute flawlessly. That's all we can do to ensure success, and that's what we continue to do.
Do you find that just being public now, I have a little bit of a reverse experience. I started public, our company, and then our company went private. One of the things that I think the C-suite had said when they went private was the feeling of not being driven by short-term expectations. Do you find that now that you're public, does the company have different ways of handling goals? Because public markets don't value you necessarily in a long-term basis, and companies like yours, especially, companies that are building for the future need to be long-term thinking.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and that is 100% true. These investors today would like to see short-term valuation increases. So for us, we're so fortunate. We have our programs in choroidal melanoma. We just started our program in non-muscle invasive bladder cancer, and we have meaningful data readouts along the way. So we knew that for at least the first 2 years, if not even beyond, we structure our programs to ensure we have meaningful information, because you want to keep it fresh. You want people to know what's going on. So it is a little bit of a dynamic change from, say, 20 years ago, where you were in it and you just waited. Investors do like to see things on a more frequent basis.
Okay, just to go back a little bit to, in some ways, the beginning of the journey that almost got torpedoed, the doubting Thomas, who was saying, you've never done this before, why do you have any right to think you could do it? Did you have reflections the next day about that conversation? Or
I spent a lot of time going, no. I did. Listen, I did not think about it on that day because I was so shocked. that we got it done, right? It was months and months and months of culminating and being stressed out. Like I just needed time to just believe it for a while. So I didn't think about that, but you know, what a privilege it was for me to take Aura public. I mean, it's a privilege, okay? You don't get that opportunity every day, specifically for this company. It was a privilege, and I'm grateful for it. I plan to be around at Aura as long as they'll have me. But you know, when my tenure one day ends there, I really hope I get to do it again because it's incredible fun.
Okay, let's head into a little bit more on the personal side. You've hinted at some pieces of it. The juggling the glass balls, other things like that. Talk to us about the family ride through the roller coaster, also the other things that we're all entering into the full life that you've been living.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say that there was a lot of work-life balance at this time, which I don't like that misnomer because I think there's no such thing as work-life balance. I was very fortunate that my husband, Wayne Feder, is incredibly supportive. I could not have done it without him. But he really took the lion's share of the family during that period of time. So I'm very grateful. So shout out to Wayne. But, you know, overall in your career, you really need to think about what is it that's going to give you fulfillment and what is it that you want to be for yourself, for your family, and your career. I would just say I really was I'm going to just say it. I was a horrible mother for 6 months. There's no other way to say it. You know, when we were getting ready to go ring the bell at NASDAQ, my CEO asked me if I wanted to bring my family, and I was very fortunate to do so. And I said to my then 8th grader, I said, buddy, I know you don't want to wear a mask, but I'm just telling you, if you get COVID, you can't come because you have to bring a negative test. And his answer to me was, for 6 months, I didn't eat dinner. I didn't have clean clothing. I didn't speak to my mother. I'm ringing that bell. He wore a mask, so he was fine and he got there. And I just think that it's an honor for me to have demonstrated that experience for my children, for my community, for my friends. I hope I have a friend sitting in the audience who I brought them along with me on this journey because I could not have done it. I could not have done it by myself.
Remember, the first picture that I had seen was the family up on the stage. And so it was in some ways a capstone to the full journey that everyone has to go through when it's a family affair.
That's right. You need to have support. You need to have people around you. But remember, it's a point in time. So while I didn't put my kid to sleep for most of that 6 months, I knew that when this was over, every night I was going to put my kid to sleep for a period of time, or I was going to make challah every single week, or I was going to make sure to have food for Shabbos, or I was going to come into the city and see my daughter. That's what balance is. It doesn't mean that you're equal at all times. It means that there are times that you're at work and there are times that you're not.
So sometimes it's 3 different colored glass balls, then what you're juggling at a different point in time.
Sometimes you're juggling more than 6 glass balls, and that's where you're going to get in trouble. So you have to be careful.
Yeah, it did start, though, just during those 6 months. Like, Chai, you were traveling to Africa. You had all sorts of other ways.
Here was my glass ball when I was in Africa. My kids were home, and I was gone for a week or so at a time, and that was super hard. I didn't like that at all, but I made it. James and the Giant Peach. I hope you guys have all read that book. I was in Ethiopia, and every single night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I was in that lobby, because there's no Wi-Fi in the hut in the middle of Africa, so you have to sit in the lobby, reading James and the Giant Peach on FaceTime. For me, that was how I was going to get through Africa. I needed to find a way to stay connected to my kids. Listen, my kids all understood Chai differently. My daughter, she knew what I was doing. She was a little bit older. My middle child frankly, he thought I was going around Africa and vaccinating children. That's what he thought I did. I'm afraid of needles, so I don't know why. And my little guy at the time actually thought I was a zookeeper because all I showed him was the animals running past my room, right? So, but for me, I had to find a way to have that connection, and that's how I was able to do it.
Amazing. You know, in about a minute, we're going to, for those who are listening on the podcast, we're actually in a live audience right now. So in about a minute, we're going to go to the live crowd and see if there's any questions. So I'll give the crowd a minute to sort of formulate your own questions, and I'll ask maybe one question before we do that. And then, you know, if it's okay, we'll wrap up. I've got so many lessons of what, you know, so many takeaways that I think we can all apply to our lives here. In many ways, I find that there's a tinge of communal work that runs through this whole thing, right? You did not choose even you started in Deloitte, right? Deloitte, you could have said, I'm going to be a partner to the end. And even in your choices of where to work, they could have been much more sort of financially focused. And yet it feels to me that even though now you're on the board of a school and that's sort of more, I would call like direct communal work, it feels to me that you've been always doing in your mind communal work. How has that shaped you? The ability to be part of things, whether it's in a volunteer capacity or in a full-time capacity, the feeling that doing good and doing well as a focus in life.
Listen, it's what drives me. Okay, so I was very humbled when they asked me to be the co-chair at the Maimonides School. It's an amazing institution. My kids all went or go there now. It's a beacon for Jewish day school across America today, so it's a privilege to be a part of it. But if you don't like something, you can't just sit by. You know, if you're hearing things that you want perhaps to be done differently, you can't just sit by. You have a responsibility to act and to do. And whether that's in your personal life, whether it's in the board work I do, whether it's when I volunteer for organizations, soup kitchens or whatever, like there's a lot of need in this world. We have a responsibility to go out and play our part. We have to play. People took care of me along the way, and I think it's really important that this is part of your life. It could be as big or as small, the role that you play, but your life can't just be your family, and it can't just be your work. You have to be able to be adding value to the world and helping others. It's what you got to do.
Amazing. Okay, let's go to the crowd. Questions. We're going to give you the mic, and then if we could, we'll get the signal from our illustrious producer if we have to repeat the question.
Hi, I'm Mila. Thank you so much for coming out. A question that I had for you is, you spoke about your first CFO role and then transitioning into being CFO of a public company. So I'm wondering if you could elaborate a bit about what it was like, and maybe even to this day what it's still like, kind of managing the constant learning curve, and I guess kind of getting comfortable sitting on the edge of your comfort zone.
So just to repeat the question, what's it like going from a private company CFO to a public company CFO, and how do I manage that living on the edge at all times? A little bit, I think it's my personality. I think I do my best. If someone says you have a week to get this done, it's going to take me a week to do it. If someone says I need it by 5, you will for sure have it by 5, right? So a little bit, I think it's a personality and a work ethic. Going from a private company CFO to a public company CFO, I would say there is, that's what you're focused on. So when I was at Chai and I was the CFO, I was really focused on how am I going to save these millions of children in India that die because they have diarrhea? I mean, do people in America die from diarrhea? No, of course not. But the number one reason children die in India is diarrhea. Like, we have to solve that problem. It's crazy. How do we solve that problem? So for me, I really had my first taste and love and enthusiasm around being not just a financial strategy partner, but also getting involved in the program and operation. And I was passionate about it. And it got me up in the morning. It got me excited. I think when you're a public company CFO, there's a lot on the compliance and the SEC and telling the story and meeting with investors, which I love to tell the story, talking to analysts and making sure they understand the value that's being generated. I didn't have to do that, obviously, I guess a little bit I had to do it, but it's much more focused here. But when you're a public company CFO, everything touches finance. Right? It doesn't matter if you're in clinical, it doesn't matter if you're in manufacturing, it doesn't matter if you're sitting in accounts payable. All of it relates to finance. And I always say that finance should never drive the science. You tell me what you need to get this drug to these patients, and I'm going to have to figure out how to get it. So I really need to know everything that's going on across the company in order for me to set this company up for success. And I have amazing partners across my company to do it. Thanks for your question.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Noam. Thanks for coming here. I'm just very curious about what you think for someone looking to go into finance, and we also want to have a meaningful career. I noticed that you kind of pursued that going into medicine, and you felt like like all the employees felt like they were changing lives. Is that, if I want a meaningful career, do I have to look for something in medicine, or I can make what I have anywhere as meaningful as I want it to be?
Great question. So
Everything except Staples.
Yeah. No, some people get excited counting paper clips. It just wasn't my thing. I in no way meant that everyone here needs to go in biotech, but if you were to want to go in biotech, please call me, because there's a lot of jobs available right now. You have to find what it is that you're passionate about. You have to find what it is. Some people that go work for banks and they're on the the research side, or they're on the sales side, that's what gets them going in the morning, learning about new companies, learning about new technologies, learning about, pick any industry you want. You could do that across anyone. You could do that at an accounting firm, right? You could go in accounting, you could do hospitality, you could do biotech, you could do manufacturing. Those are the places where you should go and touch and feel and learn and see what gets you going in the morning. For me, to be able to save lives and do it through the lens of finance is like accomplishing my religious requirement. I never in my life would have said that I love science. I went to Syms, so I didn't have to take a science. Sorry if that was inappropriate, but that's really part of the reason I went to Syms, to be perfectly, and I didn't have to take English literature a lot. But that's what does it for me. But I've got a lot of friends that are on the banking side and the legal side and the accounting firm side and the investor relations side. Guys, you need to make sure that you have strong communication skills. I don't care where you do it. I don't care if you do it in a small firm, a big firm, work at the post office. It doesn't matter to me, as long as you are developing your skills in verbal and written communications, as long as you're developing your skills around networking and talking to people and presenting yourself, as long as you're able to tell the story of what you're doing, you'll find your passion and you'll be right where you need to be.
Yeah, I'm sure Charlie can tell this story better than I can, but what you're bringing to mind is the tale of the two bricklayers. Asking, what are you building? This wall, this building. What are you building? The foundation for the Beis Hamikdash. That's going to change the world when we are able to coalesce all of Bnei Israel into a single place. And so being able to take that perspective, tune into your Beis Hamikdash, and be able to make that lahavdil into what you're going to do professionally.
Dean Wasserman said it way better than me. Yes.
Yeah. And if I can double click also on what was being said, one of the things that I took away that I think is important is that, and tell me if I'm wrong here, is I don't think you spent a lot of time worrying about what will be. It feels to me that wherever you went, you put your whole heart and soul into it and did it the best that you can. That's a very big important thing, especially for people that are starting their careers. You see someone who's successful and you're like, when am I going to get to, and there's no path, you can never get to, there's no path. It doesn't work like that. You never see a path. The only thing we really have in life is what's really right in front of us. And one of the things that I took from this entire conversation that I want to make sure is clear is the ability to see things that are ambiguous and that are hard and that you've never done before and do it anyways. That's the key. That's the moment where you become who you're supposed to be. It's that second where you go, I don't know how I'm going to do this, and it's going to take too much time, and I'm not going to sleep, and I've never done it before, and everything's riding on my shoulders, and let's get going. And that's going to apply if you're taking a class in your junior year of college, or you're starting your first job and they hand you the first assignment, or you got to have that uncomfortable conversation of, I'm sorry, I won't be here in September, see you by Thanksgiving, like that's how it is, or whatever else you're doing, or you're taking, to me, it feels that midah, that trait of living here and being willing to work hard at what's in front of you will take you to places. And I would guess you never thought when you came out of Syms that you'd be a CFO driving a company that's changing the world through drugs to public. And you could probably never have predicted it. And if you went back, you probably could never put the pieces again.
No, you can't. But I just want you to know it's taken me about 30 years to be able to do with what you described. People used to give me things to do or projects to do, and I'd be like, I'm not going to do, that's crazy. I want you to know I just had my year-end review, and one of the pieces of, and I work on it every day. Nobody should see me sweat. Nobody should think I can't do it. It's a new thing for me. I've never been able to do it. My feedback this year was, every time we put a challenge in front of you, you tackled it like it was nobody's business. It was my first time ever in 30 years getting that feedback. So don't beat yourself up if you're not good at it on day one. It's not something that comes natural to us. But you learn, and once you're passionate, you find that path that you want to do, that's all you want to do is to get to the next level. So just be patient with yourself, you'll get there.
Play through the pain and search for the stretch.
Excellence.
We have time for one more question. Anybody else have a final question that they, yeah.
Thank you so much for coming to speak with us. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed your perspective on learning what it's like to take a company public. I have to ask, do you see your company ever going back private? And if so, what would a situation like that entail? What were the reasons for that?
To take my company back
Private, yeah.
I do not want to do that. Honestly, there's not enough hours in a day for me to think why I would do that. Listen, the markets are really tough. I'm still, I want to say, in the top, I think as of yesterday, in the top 17 performing stocks from 2021, and I'm slightly below issue. I'm less than $2 below issue. There are other companies that are 80% below issue. So I feel like I beat myself up every day that I'm not at 14, I'm at 12 and change, but we'll get there. We'll get back there when the markets turn a little bit. Why would a company want to go from private to public? There's a lot of reasons. There could be a very large investor or private equity firm that just wants to take the public market impact out of the story and have the company focus on that. There could be a lot of reasons why. Where my company is sitting right now and where we are tracking in terms of starting our pivotal program, starting our next program, being able to have meaningful data readouts, I don't see that's a plan. But it's an interesting question, and let me just leave you with this one last thought. When I go to work in the morning, I say, I'm going to do these 5 things. And I can assure you by 10 a.m., I'm doing 5 different things, right? That's how rapid and fast paced some days are really. But what I do is I play chess. Unfortunately, sometimes I play it by myself, so clearly I always win. But you have to play chess. And you need to think about what are the next 5 to 10 moves. And how are you going to react? And what would you do differently if move 5 happens or move 6 happens or move 7? Because you need to be prepared for all those questions. And when you apply that across finance and across operations, you really get to build a very robust picture of what today is, what tomorrow could be, what 3 weeks can be from now. And you could really, really be prepared for whatever comes, whether you're taking your public company private, which I don't like to talk about, but I'm sure that there is an avenue for others to do so.
Before I turn to the Dean, let me just double click on that. You know, a great way to play chess, this is a great thing for all of us, you really can't play chess when every second of our lives we are staring at something. You know, many times when you ever go to like a store and like you forgot your phone and you're panicking that you may wait online for 6 seconds and have nothing to do, that panic to not be thinking really takes away from the level of higher level thinking that senior executives have. We should make sure that we have time when we walk to places and when we start our days and when we end our days to think, because it's that thinking and the time in the quiet that I believe is where you go from playing checkers to chess.
Yes, absolutely.
Dean, this has been an incredible time. I have pages of notes, as you can see. Any parting words before we conclude this podcast?
So one, I loved an early quote from Julie that I can accentuate a little bit. Of you can even change the world through finance. And so lots of ways in which we can take our skills, be able to translate it into impact. And then we saw Julie take those skills and translate it into nonprofit impact. And so all the ways that you can be able to have the megaphone of the skills that you're building, be able to translate into all the domains that are critical for the community, for the world, and for the family, for that to happen. Before we wrap in here, some of your other things, though, I also want to wish a mazel tov to our ace producer, Uri Westrich, and his wife on the arrival of their first son, Natan Tzvi.
Mazel tov.
So, mazel tov, Uri. May you have decades of nachas. May all the generations of the family have decades of nachas from Natan Tzvi.
And I guess I'll end with one final thought and we'll close. You know, it happens to be that recently I was reviewing one of the things about this podcast is we try to infuse Jewish wisdom because it's everywhere and it's part of life. So there's a famous book that many of us know called Mesilas Yesharim. And in that book, the author speaks to the idea of zeal, of zrizis, of being able to, and he says that there's a laziness that all of us have that creeps into our mind when things get tough and says, you'll do it tomorrow. And someone who has zeal realizes that now is the only right time. And that applies to everything in life. And to me, one of the most pivotal moments in this story, and I can almost see it, is the story of this is not the right time to go public. Let's just do it tomorrow. And it very much speaks to the same wisdom of there are so many things in our lives that we should do, and we don't because it's not the right time, right? Later is the guilt-free way of saying never. And it's just an excuse that allows us to feel better about ourselves as we hit snooze or don't engage in this, or don't go here, or don't try this thing, or don't try to take a company public when the markets are going out of control. And I think that was really one of, amongst the many, one of the most powerful lessons that we can all take away, that there really is never the right time. It's the time you make of it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing what an incredible story. If you have questions for Julie, for us, please email us at foundersdilemmaspodcast@gmail.com. We thank you for joining us live. We thank you for joining us on the podcast, and we look forward to seeing you next time. We believe the next episode as well will have a live feature to it to have an incredible guest. So stick with us, and thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.